up in the morning and plug in my Nespresso machine to have coffee. That's when you know you're camping right, is when you have a good cup of coffee in the morning. So I'll do that sometimes. The generators are pretty genius. But that's what's going on. So I feel like you ever like taking a couple of steps onto a frozen pond or lake and you're just kind of softly walking because you don't want the ice to break and you fall into some chilling water? That's what I feel like I'm doing right now. Just navigating softly, just hoping that things can stay together until 6 o'clock. That's all. That's what we're hoping for. But I hope you're enjoying your day out there. Football camps they're on, man. It's large and in charge. And we saw a move today. Stephon Diggs is headed on his way to the Commanders. That's one of those storylines I'm going to follow this year. I love Jaden Daniels. Had a chance to see him live numerous times with the ASU Sun Devils. And then he went to LSU. I'm a huge fan. He had that awesome rookie season with the Commanders, but there was some regression last year. And that could be traced back to a lot of different reasons. Defense, injuries, the norm. But I think two guys I'm going to watch this year to see if they can have bounce back years. Jaden Daniels will be one, and then also C.J. Stroud, who had that awful finish, including the playoff game against the Patriots for the Texans. Can those two guys bounce back? But if I had to pick my division winners right now, I'll take Buffalo in the AFC East, New England right behind them. I think Miami and the Jets both missed the playoffs. You don't have to go out on a limb to suggest the Jets, of all teams, are going to miss the playoffs. They stink. But Buffalo and New England are legit. And both teams have legit quarterbacks. The problem with the Bills is they've really done a remarkably poor job of building the team around Josh Allen. They're still too Josh Allen reliant, I think, to be able to win a championship, but they're close. In the AFC North, I lean Baltimore to win the division. I think Pittsburgh and Cincinnati will be obviously in a position vying for a playoff spot. The question with the Bengals, of course, is do they have enough defense and will they be able to protect Joe Burrow? If Burrow is healthy and able to play throughout the season, they're going to be tough because Joe Burrow is that good. And according to Mike Sando's quarterback tiers, Burrow's still squarely a top-tier number one quarterback. In the AFC South, I'll give the nod to Houston. Now, I've got concerns about Stroud and whether or not he can have a bounce-back season, but their defense, their coaching, the pass rush, it's so good that they're going to be competitive and in basically every game they play. But I think Jacksonville's legit, and I think Indianapolis, assuming their quarterback's healthy, you've got a three-team viable race in the AFC South. In the West, I'll take the Broncos to win the division because I do believe they're the best team. But I think the Chargers and the Chiefs obviously both going to be really good. One of the best divisions in football. And the key for the Chargers, just being healthy. They have both their tackles back now, health at running back. And the question is Herbert going to have enough, dynamic playmakers on the outside to get things done? I think Justin Herbert is a top-notch, franchise, delicious quarterback. But his detractors will always point to the fact he's 0-3 in the postseason. So his accolades are not what they should be. But that doesn't mean he's not a great player. I just think he's everything you want. Good leadership, dynamic in terms of mobility and arm strength, smart, and he's got a good coach. And there's a good connection between Herbert and Harbaugh. In the NFC East, I think the Cowboys are legit this year. I still give the nod to Philadelphia, and we'll see what happens with the Giants and the Commanders, but I think Dallas and Philly are the class of that division. But I would still give the nod to Philly to win that division because of the overall quality of talent on that roster. And the NFC North, another brutal division. Chicago, Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota, all four teams potentially could win the division. But I'm looking forward to watching Caleb Williams. I'm a big fan of his, and I thought he made some tremendous progress under Ben Johnson last year. And they've continued to do a good job of adding talent to the roster. I think Detroit's poised to have a bounce-back year. And then Minnesota, depending on Kyler Murray's production, they've got a talented roster. I like Carolina in the South. And in the West, I like the Hawks to win the division again. Rams are going to be right there. Rams are the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. but they also have some aging stars they're counting on. And unless they stay 100% healthy, they could hit some, bumpy parts of the road as well. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Jim Etzel, Sport Oregon, scheduled to join at 4:20. I'm Chad Doing. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Well, my sports pants just got a little bit tight. I think the phones might be working. We'll have to wait and see. All right, I want to play this. Sophie Cunningham of the Indiana Fever is absolutely on fire. She's batting like 1,000 of late. Like, she can't miss. Everything she says is spot on. And here she is once again highlighting the exact need of the WNBA to focus on what should be focused on, and that's some of the tremendous talent that they have.
I think that there's so much good going on in the WNBA. I think that basketball is being played at the highest level it's ever been. I think our team in specific, we are breaking history right now with the amount of points that we're scoring on back-to-back games. I think the Minnesota game, there's just so much distraction. I think the WNBA media, all we ever do is cover everything except basketball. And it's like, what are we doing? There's so much. Like, you can talk about other things. I think those are great stories. I think it shows fans, who people are outside of the court. But I also think we got to keep the main thing the main thing. And I think when it comes to the Minnesota game, I think there is so much distraction. But, like, the matchup between Miles and Kelsey was phenomenal. Our team, that game in particular was a great game. And so I think that there's a lot to be said, and I'm going to let people just do the speaking for themselves. But for me, I want to get back to basketball. It's always been about basketball. That interview happened in February when I was asked a question. And so for me, I just want to, make sure that it stays, the focus stays where it should, because people are playing at such a high level. We have probably like 3 MVPs that could be MVPs on our team specifically. And so that's why I want to do that. No, I was asked a question, and that's simply what it was. I just wasn't making a statement to make a statement. And so I was trying to clear the air, and I did that back in February. And so it is what it is. And like I said, we're in the middle of the season. I'm going to keep it that. We talk about a bunch of distraction. Our team is good. My teammates are good. Our locker room is great. And so now we're just here about to prepare for Las Vegas, and that's where our mind is at.
Yeah, there you go. That's Sophie Cunningham. Spectacular, just like Natalie Marmion, I might add. But no, that's exactly what the WNBA needs. Focus on basketball. Focus on the great athletes. And there's a number of great ladies who are playing ball right now in the WNBA. The Indiana Fever are playing great, especially on offense right now. The scoring, the ball movement, the player movement, they're a lot of fun to watch. So there you have it. 503-248-0620. And I've thought this about all sports, right? Think of this is the way I look at it. If you and I were to go out and start a business together, let's say we wanted to open a hamburger shop or a coffee shop, whatever the case may be, I would think that our goal would be to appeal to as many people as humanly possible to sell as much product as we could, right? You wouldn't want to take a stance or focus on, issues that aren't involving the business. Provide a good service. Be consistent in that service, and people are going to show up. And so there you have it. But when sports get away from the business and they start to focus on these political issues, I just don't think sports fans are looking for that. And you have a good way of alienating your fan base. People can get frustrated with that. And, sports, the reason why sports is so important for many of us is that what a great escape it is. If you want politics or any other type of stuff that's going on or nonsense in the world, you know where to go. But what I love about sports is that I can flip on a game, and I might get irritated because my team is just stinking up the joint, but it provides a nice escape for 2 hours or 3 hours to where you can get away from, some of the real issues that are going on in life, right? It could be something in the news. It could be family issues, whatever the case may be. I just love that sports, it provides an escape. It's part of the reason why I love talking about sports on the radio, because for the most part, like right now, this issue between the city and the team is a little bit gut-wrenching because we all have a little voice in the back of our head that says, man, what if Portland loses to the team? What if they go away? What are we going to do? But aside from that, yeah, we like to escape. Football season's right around the corner. How much fun are you having right now reading information, watching videos from practice, and getting details on your team as college football and the NFL season approach? It's freaking awesome, man. And we got the Hall of Fame game coming up. Just a lot of good things. But sports, and especially with the WNBA, part of the thing that they need to focus on right now is with the young new stars that are in the game, especially with Caitlin Clark and the newfound popularity, they need to ride that wave and bring in as many fans as possible. and grow the game. Focus on growing the game. Focus on appealing to as many people as possible. And keep it that way. Michael Jordan did. What Michael Jordan did was much like we see Caitlin Clark right now. I'm not going to focus on the political issues or get involved in that type of stuff. I'm going to focus on playing basketball. You know, she wants to shut up and dribble, and I don't have a problem with that if that's what she wants to do. Michael Jordan did the same thing because he was representing many brands, and he wanted to appeal to as many people as possible, sell as many shoes as possible, and he wanted to do it that way. And again, if someone feels compelled to share their thoughts on something that's important to them, then they should do it. Even if that means dipping their toe in the political waters, that's fine. You got to speak out on what you believe is important and share that message. That's fine. But the leagues should focus on, you know, the product and making sure that they appeal to as many fans as possible. Because what happens is, for some people, they may not give a sport a chance because if they hear any type of political dialogue, they're just like, I'm out. I don't need that. Some people are wired that way. But these young gals who are playing hoop right now, some of them are great, good talent. And like I said, I've watched a number of Fever games recently. Even what the Portland Fire are doing this year, getting a lot of fans at Moda, good support. Portland is a great city for women's sports. There's no question about it. The Portland Thorns have a terrific fan base and always pull in a lot of fans. So I just want to see these young female athletes have a chance to continue to thrive and get some of the spotlight and the attention on them for the work that they're doing on the court, which is cool. So there you have it. We have good news. I think the phone lines have been repaired and restored, which means that Jim Etzel of Sport Oregon will be able to join the show coming up at 4:20. He spoke today at City Hall with the public testimony, and I think he's a great person to have on. In fact, I talked to the godfather, Dwight James, this morning after I was done asking him about Natalie Marmion and the podcast he did. I asked him about Jim Etzel, and he made a good point that he probably has as good of an understanding from both sides on this issue with the city and the team, and will be able to speak well. But Jim's always been a good guy. I like Jim because I see him out at sporting events all the time. He supports local. He's always out and about, but really sharp guy, and I think he'll be able to provide some good insight. Now, Idan Kralowitz from Rip City, Not Rip Off, MIT grad, by the way. I had a conversation with him at the end of the show last night from 5:45 till after 6. Some of you may have missed the conversation, so we're going to revisit that coming up at 5:20. He had great insight on the email leak, the internal email leak that Wright Gazaway was able to uncover with a records request. So we got a lot of good things going on. And again, as Wright, let me just tell you again what Wright said at the beginning of the show. He joined me at the top, Wright Gazaway from K2. He says that his sources with City Hall indicate to him that they're on track for a yes vote. So that's good news. It's very good news. On track for a yes vote coming up on August 12th. And once that goes through, then the real negotiating can start. And then come December, we'll get that extended lease signed and the Blazers will remain. And that's what I thought is going to happen from the very get-go. I never thought the NBA was looking to get the team out of town. I never thought that that was the primary motivation of Tom Dundon. And I just knew that the city of Portland was going to do what they had to do. You have to negotiate and get the best deal for you possible, but they don't want the Blazers to leave. That'd be devastating. And that's what you have to remember, that this deal, the money that they're fighting over and the funding that's going to come in, it's not for Tom Dundon. The $573 million or whatever the exact number is, that money is not going into Tom Dundon's pocket. It's very important you understand this. This is the most important aspect of this entire negotiation. The money that will come from public funds is not going into the pocket of Tom Dundon. That money is for you and I. It's for the people in the area. The Motor Center is a public gathering place. It needs to be renovated so the fans of the Portland Fire can go to the games and enjoy it. So the ladies in the WNBA that play for the Fire can have a viable arena to play basketball in. It's for all the Blazer fans in the area who want to gather and go to basketball games. What about the families and the friends and the people that gather at concerts or monster truck shows or Disney on Ice, or you name the event? There's been plenty. NCAA tournament. That's for us. This deal, the public funds are going to be utilized. It's not for Tom Dundon. It's for you and I. That's really the key. That's the bottom line. And you have to understand that, because that's really what this is all about. It's about us. It's about us having access to a great venue where we can enjoy a variety of different things. And then for all of us who have been Blazer fans since a very young age, our team can remain in the city where it belongs forever. Rip City. And today I thought was a perfect example of the connection that's existed for 50 plus years between team and community. All the Blazer fans that showed up, how can you not see them and be like, yeah? I love the passion. And you all know it. You live it too. And even for the non-sports fans, the Moda Center and the Trailblazers remaining in town for the extended future is critical for all of us, because so many good things come from that. Again, don't forget about the tentacles that are far-reaching, all the different, parts of the area that are impacted when it comes to events, Blazer games, Fire games, the restaurants, the rideshare drivers, the construction workers, all these different things. It's critical. And I just need you to remember that. This money is not like a tip for Tom Dundon. It's not about that. It's for us. And you've got to understand that. This is not about giving $573 million and putting it in the pocket of Tom Dundon. It's about you and I having access to a viable venue where we can enjoy basketball games, concerts, different events, and have a public gathering place. And then with that, we keep a $4.25 billion corporation in town, which facilitates many great things. All right, coming up next, Jim Etzel, Sport Oregon, will join the show. We'll get his take on his experience today at City Hall and where he's at on the negotiations between the city and the team. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, I got a lot of respect for this guy. From Sport, Oregon, I'm very happy to welcome Jim Etzel back to the show. Jim, good afternoon. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Absolutely, Chad. Anytime, man, my friend.
Well,
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's great to catch up with you. And I was just talking about you earlier, how I love it because you love the Portland area, you love Oregon, and so I always see you out and about at different sporting events. But you're just like any other Blazer fan who was down there at City Hall today. Like, you care about the area and you want sports to remain. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, this is I grew up with it, right? So I was 7 years old when the team showed up into my life. So in 1970, so it's just I can't imagine this place without the Portland Trailblazers in it.
Yeah, it would be terrible to think about this area without the Trailblazers. The relationship between team and community is important. You did a great job. I was very impressed with your short message and the public testimony at City Hall today. Just give us kind of a your overview of what you saw and the whole scene and environment at City Hall today with public testimony.
I thought, it was. I would say it went kind of as expected. There's two sides. There's the side that's very passionate and for both the Blazers and Moda Center, and then there is a vocal element of our community that just doesn't believe in these type of things and how they bring value. So it's, to me, everybody has their opinion. I respect everybody's opinion. I fight hard for where my view is and the people around me. So, that was why we really put We Are Rip City together, was to be a coalition and a place where the positive views and voices around not just the Blazers, but what the Moda Center beyond the Blazers means to our community. And there hadn't been a place for all those voices to aggregate and to connect to each other, but also to be able to for the kind of not just the elected officials in the city and county, but statewide even, just to see how big that audience was, because we tend not to show up in some of the areas where some of our elected officials look to get the community feedback, and it's just I don't know why, but we don't, and so we had to create that space.
All right, when you put together We Are Rip City, which was an effort to make sure the Blazers remain here in Portland where they belong, what was the response that you got from some of the different business leaders in the community?
Overwhelming, and thank you. We needed this. I mean, we looked around a couple months ago. Obviously we worked really hard down in Salem during the short session on the state funding bill. I mean, we've been part of this conversation since day one as Sport Oregon. And then, as we came out with the win in Salem collectively with all the parties down there, and there's a lot of people that contributed in the community to getting that to where it was and to get that funding mechanism in place, which was really a catalyst to where we are today. But I hate saying it, but like somewhere the narrative changed somewhere between the end of March and, by the time May rolled around. And, in Salem, the narrative was, this is Oregon's arena. It's critical infrastructure. It's so much more than the Blazers. The Blazers are 41 nights out of 170 event nights in the Moda Center, and 41 nights out of 260 to 70 events in the entire Rose Quarter. So it's really, a place that brings our city, our metropolitan area, our region together, our state. It's Oregon's arena. Like, it is the most number one spot emotionally for Portlanders and Oregonians to connect. If it's a placemaker, it's the Moda Center. When you stop and think about it, that struck me as like, whoa, really? And, but it's a place where if you're a country music fan, you're around 20,000 other country music fans. If you're a rap fan, a rock fan, if you're going to a Disney on Ice show, you're there with other families. If you're going to the Blazers or a Fire game, you're around people that have the same interests as you. Or if it's graduation, you're all celebrating your kids there. So people that go to the Moda Center on all those events night, or BMC for that matter, they find their people, they find that commonality, and they walk out, even if their team lost, feeling better and more connected to Portland and their fellow community members. So like we looked at what was going on, and there wasn't, because of the way things were going, the Blazers couldn't lobby for themselves. It'd be self-serving. And so we just felt like we needed to form a coalition, and we needed to get the voices that in these moments really matter. And that's small business and everyday fans and citizens and people that get how, a place like the Moda Center and a team like the Blazers, how it's just such a woven, connected web of not just economics, but also kind of the emotional and social factors as well.
Hey, Jim, you just touched on a couple of key points about Moda Center and the importance of having a gathering place, which is the number one gathering place in the state. I think a lot of people simply look at this issue and they say, well, why would we want to give $573 million to a billionaire owner? But that money is not going into the pocket of Tom Dundon, and the money's not about him. It's about us, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I get why there's that initial reaction. Heck, I was walking back from City Hall, and two young women, they saw my Portland has Rip City T-shirt on underneath my sport coat. And they didn't have nice things to say to me, and it connected me to a billionaire bootlicker. I don't know. I just smiled and said, "How's your day?" And I got the response back, "I hate your shirt and I hate what it stands for." I don't get that, but at the end of the day, that's fine. That's their view. But like when you look at this, the reality is this: it's a city-owned facility. Okay, the Blazers are 41 of the 170 nights there. So that billionaire owner, he's a tenant of the building. Yeah, he's also the operator, the contract that he has with the city to run it, or will have it if the lease is extended with Rip City Management. But at the end of the day, we hear all this talk about market rate deals. Well, market deals in comparable markets. And only in the last 5 or 6 years. You just can't go back farther than that. And when you look at markets like Salt Lake City, Oklahoma City, Memphis, Charlotte, you're looking at deals that are comparative market size to us. And when you look at, now you go to the next differentiator. Is it a renovation or is it new construction? I should add San Antonio into the mix. So we're a renovation. So that means renovated buildings in that mix are Charlotte, Memphis, and Salt Lake City. Memphis and Charlotte are city or publicly owned buildings, and they're 100% publicly financed on the renovation. Salt Lake City is privately held by the owner of the Jazz. They are in their second renovation in a decade, and currently it's an $800 million renovation, 100% publicly financed in a private building. Why? Because of the economic impacts and what those brands that are in that building mean to not only the visibility and vibrancy of a city, not just nationally, but globally, but also, just the sheer impact of those buildings and what they do for the community. And then you look at new construction, like we're going to see in Oklahoma City, which, by the way, is on their second arena since getting the Thunder. It's going to be a brand new build. It's already going. It is 95% publicly funded. And then you go to San Antonio, which is a building that they're replacing a building that's just slightly newer than the Moda Center. And that building is going to be, I want to say it's either 65 or 70% publicly funded, and then the rest is the private funding from the owner. Now, when you do a new building, there is some element of private investment in it. But renovations, to me, for any of the markets that are 15 or lower on the size scale, it shows it's 100% publicly funded. So that's our comp set. That's our reality. I mean, Portland, it's not our birthright to have an NBA team. There's only 30. The NBA and the NFL are probably the biggest global leagues in the world. And we're one of 30 cities that has an NBA team. We have no natural right to it. I said that today. I said that in the county commission meeting 2 weeks ago. I mean, but what we do have is we got lucky 55, 56 years ago when Harry Glickman pulled off a miracle in Los Angeles and got this team. But what's kept them here is this incredible fan base and support that we've experienced, and how this city and the state have embraced this team. There's a lot of other markets that are similar in size, and even some that are larger, that have not sustained that type of relationship with their team and success over a 55-plus year span, and they've lost their teams. And, I just don't want to see that happen here. People say Seattle was fine. They lost to Sonics. Well, they had an NFL team and a Major League Baseball team to fall back on. Since then, they've attracted an NHL team. They brought in, and the Sounders were there, and then they brought in WNBA's been there forever, and NWSL has been there forever, and now they're finally maybe close to getting an NBA team, hopefully with expansion. And it's been 20-some years, and that they're the 12th largest market with a market dynamic that's far different from us. If we were to lose the Blazers, I said it today, we'll never get a major league team again in the 4 major sports.
I agree.
It's just not going to happen. I want baseball, but I don't know how we win baseball. I'll try to win baseball. Would be part of the effort to do that. But I don't know why baseball would consider us, especially how competitive it is to get one of these 2 teams when they move to expansion, if we can't keep a team we've had for 56 years.
We're talking to Jim Etzel from We Are Rip City and Sport Oregon. So a question for you, from the people you know on both sides, are you confident that we're heading to a yes vote on August 12th?
I feel good about where we're at. I don't take anything for granted. I don't think you can in today's world.
No.
But I do believe our elected officials, they all have different views on it, and they all have slightly different constituents that they, represent. But I think they understand how important the Blazers are. I think they want to get to yes. Well, does that mean that all of them will be able to get to yes? Probably not. Tomorrow's a big day with the county. There's public testimony going on. It's virtual. It's a virtual county hearing, and then they're going to hopefully vote on moving forward to enter into an IGA with the city of Portland and to fund that we need that to happen tomorrow. And then next Wednesday is hopefully the day when City Council votes on the term sheet, which is. It's a non-binding deal, but it really is, kind of the wish list of the city of the things they'd like to see in the lease. But if we can get through next Wednesday and get enough votes to get through, then the joint authority, which was called out by the Senate bill, it goes into kind of a negotiation with it goes into negotiations with the Blazers on that lease agreement, and and that hopefully could be done by the end of the year. I think it's really important it is important to unlock the funding from the state. That has to be locked down with a lease agreement with the 20-year extension for that money to be activated by the end of the year. If we miss that, then we got kind of have to start from scratch again at the state. So that's our goalpost right there.
We're talking to Jim Etzel. Hey, Jim, when you were younger, what athlete did you want to be? For me, it was John Elway, but who was the athlete that you loved the most when you were a kid?
I was lucky growing up, with my dad as a coach. I had a lot of heroes that played at UP and other places, but I don't know. From a pro athlete perspective, when I was real young, Dr. J was the real deal. I remember watching Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in the Far West Classic at Memorial Coliseum.
Oh, wow. How was that?
Pretty cool to, but I don't know, basketball-wise, it would have been Dr. J. And then, all the Blazer greats were favorites of mine, obviously, the championship team. Obviously I was rooting against Dr. J when the Blazers were facing off with him in '77. That wasn't even a hard one. Maybe the reason why I still hold him high. I got to play golf with him a couple times. He's just an unbelievable gentleman. A lot of baseball players I love, but I guess he was the one. I don't know. Hank Aaron was big to me too. I
love Hank.
I remember watching it on the TV set and him hitting a home run to break Babe Ruth's record, and just and I don't know. There's some of the way he carried himself that I thought was cool.
That's great. All right, Jim Etzel, Sport Oregon, and we are Rip City here on the Rip City Drive. Hey, Jim, great work today. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for your efforts and all the work that you're doing with the people who are part of We Are Rip City. Keep the Blazers here. Thank you.
Yeah, if I got one ask for you, Chad, I'm going to sneak it in. Just keep encouraging everybody that tunes in your show, and there's a lot of them out there, just to go to weareripcity.org and sign the petition and join the coalition. We're going to keep this going through the balance of the year. And, yesterday alone, 1,500 people signed the petition, and that initiated an email that dropped a letter of support into every city councilor and county commissioner's inbox. We've had over 4,500 of those go into their inboxes, each of them. And it's meaningful. It makes a difference. And same thing if you want to sign your company on, or you as an individual onto the coalition and have your name listed there. It's making a difference. I would highly encourage anybody that cares about the Blazers and the Moda Center and the fire and everything that goes on in there to do that. I would greatly appreciate it, and I think everybody that cares about that place would as well.
All right. I just went to weareripcity.org and signed the petition, so my name is on the list. I okayed it to be on there, so I encourage everyone else to do that. But, another question for you then. I don't think people understand, this is and I think a lot of sports fans, maybe this is an opportunity for them to become politically active for the first time, but this is one of those times where people's voices being heard makes a difference, right?
We've gotten the comments from city councilors and mayor's office and the county commission, this is good to see because it gives balance and perspective on what's out there, about how people feel. Sometimes the people that oppose things are the loudest and make the most noise, and that's fine. We're in a democratic, process in city and country. But sometimes the people that use it, the silent, I'll call it majority, that just doesn't feel like there's a place to go or a way to communicate, and they just are averse to kind of being in the noise room. This is a way, and it's just real easy, and you just click a button and boom, it all happens, and it has every person it means a lot, and it's noticed, and it is one place where your voice matters, not just at the ballot box.
That's great. Jim, I appreciate you, man. Enjoy your week, and we'll catch up soon.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You got it. There's
Bye.
Jim Etzel. We are Rip City and Sport Oregon. Go to weareripcity.org and add your name. Let your voice be heard. Also, I've been very busy reaching out to city officials, so I think we're about to get something locked up in studio, but I don't want to jinx it, but we're close. So this is very good. Big thanks to Jim Etzel. We'll hear from Don Krolowitz from Rip City, Not Rip Off, coming up at 5:20. Big thanks to Wright Gazaway for joining the show. We're going to revisit that conversation as well. You can reach out now, 503-248-0620 if you want to jump on board. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, Charlie in Vancouver says, hey, I'm surprised you didn't mention Rick Ravio when you were talking to Jim Etzel. Jim Etzel, of course, big Portland Pilot guy. Well, I didn't mention Rick Ravio. His name came to my mind. Also, Darwin Cook. They've had a couple of basketball stars. I actually covered Rick's son, Derek, when he was in high school at Mountain View over in Vancouver before he made the transition to Gonzaga. But Rick Ravio was a stud when he played. And then in his later life as a dad, he would always walk in the gym well-dressed and very handsome. Like Rick Ravio, an absolute stud. Like, what's a nice way to put this? Like, I just really doubt that Rick Ravio ever had an issue getting companionship with someone of the opposite sex. I just don't think that was an issue for Rick. Great athlete, though. But his son, Derek, was awesome. Great shooter. Our telephone lines are now open. If you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620. Coming up here at 5 o'clock, we will revisit the conversation with Wright Gazaway. And at 5:20, you're going to hear Idan Krolowitz's take on the leaked emails that popped out yesterday. And it sounded like it was one of those deals where someone forwarded an email chain with all the details on there. And then Wright got his hands on it with just a simple records request. But that's always a little bit dicey, right? When it comes to forwarding emails, making sure you're sending it to the right person, or when you have your phone and you're texting like multiple people at the same time, when you send the wrong text to the wrong person, that can be devastating. You're like, oh, shouldn't have sent that to that person. My bad. Sometimes my bad's not going to cover the damage that was done, though. That's crazy. All right. And Travis is hitting me up, Travis Weber. He is a huge Raider fan, and he likes to try and take shots at me because he knows I love the Broncos, and the Broncos and Raiders are arch enemies. So the other night, he's like, hey, just so you know, the New England-Denver AFC title game's on television right now. And I'm like, I don't need to see that. Did Bo Nix play? I don't think so. And then today he reached out. The Raiders will win the Super Bowl this year. I think you forgot to mention that, or maybe you cut out and I just missed that part. And I'm just like, get out of here. And he's like, release the hate from your heart, my friend. Like, I'm not being a hater. The Raiders are not going to win the Super Bowl. They're going to finish dead last in the AFC West. And that's not a shot at the Raiders. That's just look at the competition. Chiefs get Patrick Mahomes back. Denver won 14 games last year. And the Chargers were a playoff team in spite of losing like half the team to injury. It's a tough division. But I'll say this about the Raiders. They made a great coaching hire. And they have Fernando Mendoza. So I think with the Raiders, what you're going to see this year, I would expect this to be the case. But, you know, I thought the same thing with Pete Carroll, and it was way off on that. I like Kubiak a lot. I'm a huge fan of Gary Kubiak. I'm a huge fan of Clint Kubiak. I think what you're going to see now with the Raiders is a more you're just going to be able to see with the operation that they're on the right path. And I think that will result in better success on the field. It may not show up in wins and losses, but I would expect throughout the course of the year to see the progress. Now, they were smart by adding a veteran quarterback so that they don't have the pressure on Fernando Mendoza to where he has to play right out of the gate. I would be patient with Fernando. I would not rush him onto the field, and I would just take my time. And then when he's ready, you turn the keys over to him. Let Kirk Cousins or whoever you want run the offense until Fernando's in a position to where you know he's ready to rock. That's how I would handle that, because I like Fernando, and I think he's got a chance to be good because he processes well and he delivers the football accurately and on time. And when you run on schedule in the NFL, good things typically will happen. But yeah, the Raiders are on the right track. That was a good coaching hire. But how many times have we said this about the Raiders over the last, 50 years? And they fall flat on their face. It's just an organization that's had a difficult time getting out of their way for a long time. And in my lifetime, I was born in 75. So they won the Super Bowl early 80s, 84, when they beat the Redskins on that Well, Marcus Allen, one of the greatest runs in Super Bowl history. But from that point moving forward, they appeared in an AFC title game against Buffalo and got blasted. They made it to a Super Bowl and got blasted. But aside from that, they've been pretty much a no-show. They made the postseason a few years ago when Bisaccia had stepped in as interim head coach, and they lost a close game they probably should have won against Cincinnati. And then the Bengals went on to the Super Bowl. So the Raiders are on the right track. At least it would appear to be the case with the hiring of Kubiak and then Mendoza. But that division is brutal. The two best divisions in football, NFC West, AFC West. The NFC West has Arizona, bums, but then they have the defending Super Bowl champs, the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, and the San Francisco 49ers, who made the playoffs last year but were ravaged by injury. All three of those teams are going to be great. And in the AFC West, same thing. Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers. Oh, good news, by the way. I mentioned Greg Papa, who's dealing with his battle with cancer right now. He's had to step away from his gig at KNBR. John Lund, who was longtime partners with Papa, has been brought back and will take over middays on KNBR down in San Francisco. What a great hire that was. John Lund is one of the best radio guys I've ever worked with. Incredibly talented, very smart, and just a great guy. And I love him and his family. I'm a big John Lund fan. He's always been great to me. But a great hire by him. So he'll come back to San Francisco. He's doing part-time weekend stuff on Westwood One. He's also contributing to Arizona sports down in the desert. But a great hire because he worked with Papa. And Lund is really the only guy that Papa truly trusts doing a radio show with. And so he'll be able to bring that Papa spirit back as he continues to, press forward in his battle against cancer. And hopefully he'll get back in the booth and be able to, call more Niner games. I think the piece in the Chronicle, what Papa was talking about is like he just wants to put himself in a position to where he can get back and then be able to walk out on his own terms and not have cancer dictate. All right, coming up next, Wright Gazaway of K2 with the latest on the negotiations and, of course, all the events at City Hall today with public testimony. You got the Rip City Drive.
If Adam Silver's listening, you will be the worst NBA commissioner of all time. Do not let this thing happen. Use whatever leverage you can. You let a kind of a grade A douchebag of an owner to buy the team. And Tom Dundon, stay in Portland. Okay, it'll work out.
Live from the Coors Light Studios, it's the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing. Coors Light, cold as the Rockies. Please drink responsibly.
And I am pissed off. The buck needs to be passed to every darn event.
So let's get over the ideological bent on this eat the rich stuff and get this deal done. I mean, if we want to be responsible adults, let's do a better job managing the asset that's the Moda Center than say we did the PSU library last year when it got trashed.
After sharing a first draft with Rip City management, we expected that there would be some official back and forth. Had that happened, staff would be bringing council trade-offs and identifying openings. We would be having a meatier conversation about what is possible with our negotiating partner and what we want to prioritize within the window of possibility. But that did not happen.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
All right, Wright Gasaway of K2 in just a moment. I got to give credit to my engineer and producer, Michael Shacker. He is a terrific coworker, but he just showed me the ultimate sign of respect. During the commercial break, I walked out of the studio, and I was heading down to the restroom, and he was walking back from the restroom. He just smiled, looked at me, and said, "Don't go in there. Use the women's." I knew what he meant. He knew what he meant, and so I smartly went into the other restroom, and I appreciate that. Like, I respect a coworker that's like, "Look, man, you don't want to go in there right now." So mad props to Michael Shacker, without question. And this is a guy who has been all over the story doing a heck of a job. Wright Gasaway, who is a investigative reporter and anchor from K2. You know him. He's here on the Rip City Drive for the first time. Wright, thank you for your time, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yes, it's great to have you. First off, before we get to details, I just want to tell you that you have been doing a great job. And you were just telling me before the show started that all of those hours you've spent covering City Hall, it's paying dividends now when we have something really meaty with the Blazers in the city.
Yeah, it certainly helps to do all that sourcing before you need it. And I would just say I'm doing my job, but I appreciate the kind words.
Well, I appreciate it. So why don't you update us for those who didn't have a chance to see any of the activities today, but they opened up City Hall for public testimony. Give me your brief overview of the events today.
Yeah, City Hall was packed. I've been down there many, many times. I have never seen it so crowded. The chamber was full. They had an overflow room set up, close to 100 people set up to testify. I saw a lot of people in Blazers gear. I saw a lot of people associated with unions and their union gear. So a lot of passion on both sides, a lot of public testimony. And I will say, as someone who watches a lot of public testimony, a lot of really informed people offering a range of opinions today. So certainly a big day for the city, first chance for the public to weigh in, and I think they certainly showed up.
You know what was fascinating to me is that you have two sides that are in the middle of a bitter negotiation, but yet Dwayne Hankins yesterday put out the message encouraging Trailblazer fans to show up, and then you had the council, which was also encouraging fans to show up. I think that's pretty cool that you have both sides wanting to engage with the public on such a big deal, and I think for a lot of these sports fans that maybe this is one of the first opportunities they've had or felt inspired to become politically active.
Yeah, I would say that if you follow City Hall, you can watch 5 or 6 meetings and you'll see that typically the same people show up to testify no matter the issue. So I think it was important for both sides to really encourage their supporters to show up, provide their testimony so that the council heard a range of opinions as opposed to just the usual suspects, especially when you have these city council meetings happening during work hours. It can be hard for people to get down there. But I was impressed with how many people showed up. A lot of people looked like they were in their work clothes as well.
All right, as we approach that all-important vote coming up on August 12th, what were some of the big ticket items that were discussed today that you think are the most important or the most pressing in the ongoing negotiations?
Yeah, certainly don't want to bore people with the details of the term sheet. We've been reporting all along that you can expect to see amendments proposed by city councilors. We found out today those will officially come tomorrow, but we heard some of the amendments that they plan to propose. They detailed some of them today. I just want to encourage people that it's very common when you have budgets or any sort of public policy that there are amendments that are proposed that will never pass. It's a strategy that some people employ. So it's hard to read based off one amendment whether it has any chance of passing. But any amendment to this term sheet needs 7 votes. And just so people understand the mechanics, the working term sheet will be the draft that we have already seen. Any amendments would be proposed to adjust that, and they would have to vote on those amendments individually. And we can get into some of the ones that I thought were interesting, but I think that's the process that's important for people to understand as they get worked up about maybe what they see over the next couple of days, just to understand what it would take for that term sheet to change.
We're talking to Wright Gazaway, who is a investigative reporter and news anchor at K2. So let's go over some of the specifics, because I think a lot of people may not have a true understanding. But in regards to specific terms on the sheet, which ones were most interesting to you?
I think the most interesting is certainly the city asking for a $3 million annual payment from the team. There was some back and forth over how much they wanted that annual payment to be and how much they wanted it to increase over time. They settled on $3 million annual payment with an escalator of 5% a year. And my sources in the city feel like that gives them some room to negotiate with the team, whose stated position is 0, that they feel like maybe there's some room to meet in the middle. One of the amendments we heard today that Samir Kanal, councilor, will propose is to raise that annual payment to $4 million with a 6% escalator. So they will have to vote on that. But right now, that's certainly the only revenue that the city will get back in this deal. It's also what I think will be a big sticking point for the team. The other details in the term sheet I think that are worth watching is the commitment to a labor peace agreement, which would apply to arena workers, and whether the team will agree to that, essentially allowing their arena employees to unionize, which of course, not saying this is a bad thing, but that can sometimes drive up costs for the employer. So I think that's a calculus that the team is making. So it will be interesting to see how they come down on that. We've heard nothing definitive as far as where they will come there, but that's one I think is worth watching as well.
Hey, Wright, have you noticed that as the discussions have become more public, especially when the city sent over the term sheet to the Blazers, and then the fans and the people in the community started to see it and believed it was reasonable, that you think that maybe more people now are starting to see the city's point of view on these negotiations with the Blazers now that we've gotten into more of a public light?
Yeah, without exception, I think fans that I see and interact with immediately shifted from thinking the city will mess this up, the team will leave, the city won't be serious. When they saw the draft term sheet, they thought, wow, that's actually really reasonable. And I'm talking about Blazers fans. They felt like it was really a team-friendly deal that gave the team some room to negotiate without being unreasonable. And I think it gave them hope that the city would actually put forth something that was serious, as opposed to some pipe dream that had no chance of getting agreed to.
All right, Wright, for those who don't know, can you walk us through the next week in terms of what's coming up next along this process?
Yeah, so tomorrow at 2:00, there will be a city council meeting. Originally, they had it held for continuation of public testimony. They actually got through all the public testimony today. So tomorrow, what you'll hear is councilors just reacting to what they heard. They'll discuss the term sheet again. You'll have these formal proposals of amendments. Not entirely clear whether they will vote on those amendments tomorrow or wait until next week. So you can expect tomorrow just more council discussion. We'll get some definitive amendments from city councilors. And then next week, August 12th, is when they will actually vote on the term sheet. It'll be exactly like a budget process. You'll have that term sheet come out. The amendments that are proposed will be voted on one by one. If the amendments are approved, they would then go into the term sheet. And then after they get through all the amendments, they will have a final vote on the term sheet, and that will be August 12th. And I can just tell you that my sources in the city are confident city council will approve a term sheet next week.
And then after that is done, assuming there is a yes vote and it's confirmed, then over the next few months, that's where the city and team would go back and forth, where they come to a final agreement before the lease extension is signed, correct?
Correct. So I talked to the mayor this morning. He says to look at the term sheet as a first quarter. There will be a lot of work over the next 3 or 4 months to really finalize all these agreements, draw up the definitive documents, and then there will be a final vote in December that would officially unlock the money, that would officially lock the team in for 20 years. You can look at the term sheet basically as the city's starting point, their hope, their asks, understanding that there will be some negotiation and some give there as well.
All right. With the report that you put out yesterday with the leaked emails, internal emails from the Blazers, was there anything that came out in that reporting by you that surprised you?
Well, I'm always surprised when people accidentally send their emails to a public body. And I just want to be clear for the record, because some people, this email was not leaked to me improperly. I did not get this from the Blazers. I sent a very specific records request because I knew that there was a letter that the city sent the team
Yes.
that I wanted to get a copy of. And it was that letter outlining how they could work around litigation and how they could work around this need to pay for an architect. So I put in a very broad date range to try to catch that letter. I ended up getting back like 1,200 pages, and I was looking through it, and I thought, man, the team's attorney accidentally emailed the city attorney all of their internal negotiations. And I can tell you that was a surprise to both the city and the team that move happened.
No doubt. Right, Gazaway K2 is with us here on the Rip City Drive. Now, I was impressed with the Bethals speaking publicly today. I thought they were eloquent. Also, Jim Etzel from Sport Oregon. What else stood out to you today with the public testimony?
I think just the passion that so many people have. And I think, there's such a range of opinions. I would say generally one of the frustrations of covering this is painting people as pro-deal or anti-deal. I think the vast majority of people are pro-deal. I think their definition of a deal differs, and some of them have a definition of a deal that would never happen. But I think there's a general consensus from people that, hey, the Blazers are important. We want them to stay here. I think there's disagreement on the cost and how much you should pay to keep them here. But I was impressed with how informed so many of those public testifiers were.
Yes.
The range of ages and diversity and gender, and you had the trades unions talking about the work. You had the arena employees talking about how important it was that they have working wages and that they continue to have a place to work. You have people that live in the neighborhood who want to have a place. Certainly there were people that felt like the city should not give money to a wealthy ownership group. But I was impressed just with the range of testimony.
I was even impressed. I walked away from last week's open session, work session. I walked away with a positive vibe because I was happy that both sides were engaged in dialogue, right? And when I saw that, I realized that, as you just pointed out, they may not agree on what a deal is, but I could see that both sides were actively trying to come to terms to get a deal done. Did you get that sense from the work session?
Yeah, and I think things will pick up pretty rapidly after this August 12th vote. I think from the team's perspective, they're not following city council religiously, so they don't understand the dynamics. When they hear a certain councilor say something, they don't know if that's a one-off or if that's the opinion of the majority. So I think in much of this, they're trying to read, where's the public, where's the council? Are we going to get this deal? Are we negotiating and wasting our time? So I think when you have a public vote, and this is on the record, the team can then say, okay, this is where the majority of council is. This is where the minority of council is. That will inform kind of what they need to listen to, what they need to acknowledge. And I think it will send a message to the team that the city is committed and is willing to put their money behind this. And I think that's hard to interpret when you don't have a vote.
All right, right. I've got one more question for you. Let's see here. Which direction do I want to take this? Oh, have you had a chance to speak one-on-one with Tom Dundon yet, the Blazers' new owner?
I've not. I've reached out a couple of times. We have not been able to connect with him. I certainly think there would be value. I would love to. I have broached that topic with the team, and at the moment, there's not any interest, and they don't feel like there's much value. But I think I'm hopeful that will change as we get further into this, and they feel like they have something to tell. We certainly invited the team on to all of our post-finals NBA shows, and they just felt like they had nothing to add at the time. So no.
All right. One final question. What is the biggest piece of misinformation that you see continue to get spread around about this entire negotiation?
Biggest piece of misinformation. I would say, I don't know if it's misinformation, but I think it's people not understanding just the structure of this relationship, and that, yes, the city owns the building, but the team operates the building. And people often say, well, why would a tenant pay for any improvements? Why would they give money to their landlord? It's just different when you have a tenant who's also the operator who makes the revenue. And I think what the city's trying to strike is there are 29 other NBA teams that have similar agreements and that many of them agree to pay rent. Many of them agree to share the revenue in some capacity. So I think it's just people understanding that while the city owns the building, the team operates it. Therefore, the team retains the revenue. And I think as people understand that relationship more, it would inform their opinion of what they think of these negotiations.
All right. He is an investigative reporter and an anchor for K2. You can follow him on social at RightKATU. He is the best follow on all matters involving the negotiations. Right Gasway here on the Rip City Drive. It is 3:14 and 49 seconds, right? It's time for you to go. I appreciate you. Keep up the great work. Awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Happy to come on anytime.
You got it. There's Right Gas. That was very productive. All right. When we come back on the Rip City Drive, big thanks to Wright. You got to follow him at Wright, KATU. When we come back, the gentleman who tipped me off on the email leak that was going to become a public story yesterday, Edon Krolowitz from Rip City Not Rip Off. We're going to revisit that conversation because I did it from like 5:45 up until just after 6 yesterday. Many of you may have missed it, but I'm not going to deny you an opportunity to hear from an MIT grad. He's been all over this story as well. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620. All right, when we come back, Edon Krolowitz, Rip City Not Rip Off. All right, this guy's been busy today, so I really appreciate him making time for the show. He had sent me a text saying that he knew of some very interesting information which was going to pop with the report, and it has on K2 now, and the title of the story is very simple, and it says, internal emails reveal the Blazers debated responding to Portland's Moda Center questions. Let's welcome Edon Krolowicz back to the show. He is from Rip City, not Rip Off. Edon, thanks for making time, brother.
What's up, Chad? How are you, man?
Oh, great. I'm looking at and have been reading through the report on K2 by Rate Gazaway that you sent over to me. Internal emails obtained by K2 show the Portland Trailblazers leaders debated whether to respond to the city of Portland's questions for commitments on private investment, rent, labor agreements, and other key pieces of a proposed Moda Center deal, with one executive saying the city's request felt like a, quote, trap. What's your reaction to this latest break based on a records request?
So I think the most interesting thing is when the Blazers just recently talked in the work session, they said that it was the first class thing that got brought up by Steve Novick. That was the thing that chilled their negotiations. But as you can tell, this happened 10 days before that work session ever happened on June 24th. This was on June 15th. And so we can now see that the Blazers were, basically not responding to messages from the city long before anyone mentioned that first class claim. And so I think, this is obviously a leak from them. I don't think they intended these internal emails to go out, but they kind of forwarded it as part of the public records request. And I think it actually is a good insight into, the Blazers basically trying to do this entire thing behind closed doors because that's where they feel like they have the most pressure. And the more stuff comes out publicly, the worse their position gets.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought when I started reading from it, is the comments you made on my show earlier this week, Adam, where you said that the Blazers, when they're working behind closed doors, they don't face the public pressure, and they're able to get things done quickly, which is in their favor, like we saw initially with the state of Oregon. But now, as you pointed out on the show, that when things became public and people, the Blazer fans and people in the community, started to be aware of what the city was asking, they found it to be very reasonable, and that started to put pressure on the Blazers, right? That's when things really started to turn.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna ratchet up between now and next week. I mean, I think, again, this doesn't really do a great job of showing that they're negotiating in good faith. I mean, I think everything the city asked in those emails was pretty reasonable. When the Blazers asked about, removing some of the things in the bridge lease, I think they provided a lot of different options. The city provided a lot of different options to say, look, we're not going to hold these things against you and we can work around. And the Blazers also asked them to start committing money quickly. And the city said, well, we can do that if you guys are willing to work with us. And so, the city's really putting the best foot forward. And it seems like the Blazers have been kind of stonewalling them. And I think from what I gather, the reason they're doing that is they're waiting until after this August 12th date so that they can get back into the quiet rooms where no one can see what they're asking for, because what they're asking for is the biggest subsidy that's been ever given for an NBA arena deal. And, Tom Dundon wants that to happen. And I think the city realizes now that, we're down to do a fair deal, but this is crazy. Like, you're trying to do something that's unprecedented here in terms of a public subsidy. And I think the more people know about it, the more they're saying there's nothing fair about this.
Okay, so I didn't realize that. So the $573 million that's a part of this package to renovate Moda Center, that'd be the biggest public package in NBA history?
Well, we have to remember that the 573 is not the actual final number, right? The 573 is just the capital contributions for the renovation up front, but it doesn't take into account the bond interest, right, which is hundreds of millions of dollars. It doesn't take into account the $275 million that the city is promising in maintenance fees, and it doesn't take into account the interest for the county as well. So when you add all that up, it's about $580 million from the state. It's about $400 million from the city, and it's $138 million from the county. That's about $1.1 billion in total. So what we're really talking about here is not $573 million. We're talking about $1.1 billion in subsidy, and the Blazers say we want to pay none of that. We want to offer zero on that, and that would be unprecedented.
Wow. Okay, so this really uncovers the original reason why you put together the website Rip City Not Rip Off, right? You want a deal to get done. We all want a deal to get done, but at the same time, it has to be reasonable to where we, the taxpayer and the city, the state, and the county are not getting screwed in the process. So really the Blazers are looking to get all of the funding, and they don't want to pay rent. They want to be able to run the building, and they don't want to share in the profits. That's pretty much what you're talking about, right?
And it seems now that they don't even want to make the 20-year commitment. I mean, they're not they're saying that they're kind of moving the goalpost here, saying, your taxes structure is bad, and Blue Star runs out of donuts too quickly, and all these other things. It seems like they keep coming up with new issues and new hurdles, which, as a Blazers fan, that's kind of rough. What we would want them to do is come forward, answer the questions, go back and forth, redline the documents like any agreement. I've done lots of business agreements in my life. One party puts forward, terms. The other party says, I like this, I don't like this. You redline the document, you go back and forth. I think that's the expectation the public has had, and that's not what's happening because Dunion is taking a hard stance. And, I can't speculate why he's doing that, except for, he wants to just anchor until the very last moment and wants to use his leverage until the very end, which I understand. I don't think he's doing himself any favors in the eyes of the NBA. And I think we're starting to get, Chad, to this point of no return with sentiment from fans and people in Portland, even people who are not fans, around the organization, and I'm worried that it's going to start to leave a bad taste in people's mouth even after this is all said and done.
Yeah, meaning that even if you get a deal done, you get the extended lease signed, that some of the damage that was done could be irreversible.
I'm hoping that that's not true, but it's starting to become more true. I think for the first time in the last kind of week or two with the statements that have been made by the Blazers executive team. I think a lot of people who are kind of on the fence have now really realized, this is not in good faith. And I think the documents that Wright has provided, which I think everyone needs to go look at, I think they're further proof that this is not really a negotiation in good faith. I can only speculate why, but it's definitely not a good look for the Blazers org.
So you think at the very least what they're trying to do is, if you stall and there's not a yes vote on August 12th, then that would allow the Blazers to go back and negotiate in the dark when it's not made public, and they would have the advantage under those circumstances.
Well, I think it's going into the dark regardless. I think even if they vote yes on August 12th, the conversations now move back to the joint authority and hopefully, the city council.
They don't want to agree to anything. They don't want to agree to anything until after the vote, and then they can go back into the dark and start to apply pressure.
Exactly right. Because then they don't have to apply. Then nothing they say can be scrutinized, right? It's going to be scrutinized only by a very small group of people who also have an incentive to not say anything and are actually under NDA. They can't say anything even if they wanted to. So, the Blazers put in this NDA back in 2022 when they were negotiating the bridge lease agreement, and that has persisted into this negotiation. And obviously we can understand why negotiations need to be private. I don't think you're going to do the entire negotiation in public. But I do think there is, at least, we want to make sure that our city councilors and people who are voting on this have time to actually know what's going on. Because a lot of times in these arena deals, what happens is there's a strong mayor involved. He negotiates a deal with the team, and they kind of go behind closed doors, and then they, a week before the vote, they give it to the city council and to basically rubber stamp it. And I think that's what he was hoping would happen here. And, Portland's just not that kind of town.
Wow. All right. So for me, and I want to get your take on this, the one no-go for me is at the very least, if you are going to give out that much money in public subsidy for the renovations on Moda Center, at the very least, there's got to be a 20-year lease agreement in place and signed. No chance for a buyout, no chance to get out of that. It's got to be 20 years minimum. I would prefer 30, but I could settle for 20. What are the other non-starters for you if you're taking a look at it from the city's point of view?
I mean, I think those provisions are non-starters. I think there's a lot of, from the council's perspective, they said labor peace agreements. They believe in union labor. So that's a non-starter for them, and that's obviously going to cost them then a little bit more.
Yeah.
For me, I always say, I want a fair deal. I'm going to put that out, as a fair deal. I don't know that I have I think my non-starters would be the same as you. I want really strong protections. If it was up to me, I'd ask for 30 years and not 20. But I understand the reasons why they chose 20 because that's kind of like the life of the Moda Center. I think they're trying to think about how do we, we're knocking this place down in 20 years. There's not really many arenas that last more than 50 years. And so, and that's another thing, Chad, we need to think about too, is like, I don't think any politician today is thinking about what's going to happen in 20 years, but we all know that place is getting knocked down in 20 years, and then we're going to be having this conversation again. Some future generations are going to be having this conversation again, except it's going to be a, $2-3 billion renovation or new arena at that point. So we got to make sure that we're protecting the city and protecting the future generations and our kids and what they're going to, the taxes they're going to have to pay. At the same time, we want this team to stay here. We want to make sure that we put forward a deal that the NBA can say, this is an acceptable deal, because you have to remember, Chad, I think this is something people forget. If the NBA works on PR, right? They don't want people to look at the NBA as this shady organization that's extorting cities for money. And so if a city comes forward like Portland is doing right now and are basically saying, look, we want you to negotiate in good faith, and we're already offering you $1 billion basically. Almost nothing out, no project plan, no nothing. If the team then says that's not good enough, we're going to leave anyway, that looks really bad on the NBA. I mean, and it also tells every city in the future, it doesn't really matter what you offer because they can leave anyway. And so the NBA does not want that. And I do not see the NBA. I think if this August 12th, if there's a yes here on August 12th, even with the weak drafted term sheet as it is, there is no way that I see a path where the NBA is going to let Tom Dundon move. And then the question just becomes, what kind of deal are we getting? What kind of return could we get back? But I mean, it's a non-starter for me. I don't think there's any way that the NBA looks at this and says, yeah, this is, the city gave you everything you wanted and it's still not enough. And that's somehow acceptable.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. But let me ask you this, with the email leaks, after you had a chance to read through it, does it change your view on this process at all, or are you still in the same place?
I mean, personally, I think the draft term sheet was weak. I mean, I know the Blazers said it was a non-starter. I think that's kind of BS. I think that's posturing. I think the draft term sheet is about as good as you could get. I mean, it basically ends up being a 9%. You're getting 9% back on a $1.1 billion. We're only getting 9 cents on the dollar back on that. Meanwhile, he's going to be making, $2.5 billion over the course in revenue over the course of that. He's making somewhere like $10 to $15 for every dollar he puts in. So I don't know how the draft term sheet could be any better for him. So I think that's why him saying it was a non-starter is kind of crazy. I personally, as a taxpayer, would love to see that draft sheet get bolstered a little bit and ask for real protections and private contributions. I don't know if the city council has the cojones or whatever you want to say to add that in there, but or the wherewithal. But I think I can't imagine the draft term sheet getting any weaker than it is right now. I mean, this is basically a steal, and I honestly I think that's why the city did it. I think that's why they put it out there, because they wanted the world to see, hey, we're giving this guy the best deal he could ever ask for, and he still said no. And so, what's the deal, right? And they kind of anchored, and they kind of set the price first, and I think that was the right move for the city to do.
All right. One other question for you. What was your reaction to the letter that Dwayne Hankins sent out to season ticket holders today, asking them to show up to City Hall tomorrow?
I think my reaction is probably similar to all the other folks, which is that's kind of rich. It's a kind of a rich thing to ask after you bash the city and for all the reasons. And I mean, I don't know Dwayne Hankins. I mean, I have no personal judgment. Again, he's doing a job, right? He this is his job, and he has to represent the wishes of his owner. It was very clear that he was reading from a piece of paper that someone had pre-written the message. So I don't know. I don't know how. I don't think he gets any gratification from doing any of this stuff, but at the same time, he deserves all the smoke because if you're going to come at the city and saying all the things that you did, then you deserve all that smoke in return.
Edan Krolowitz here on the Rip City Drive. Edan, you are the man. Thank you for the alert. Thank you for jumping on, and thank you for summarizing. I mean, you know what's crazy about this whole saga? It's like almost every day we get something new. And usually it's a poor reflection on the owner, which is wild.
Yeah. But we'll see what happens after August 12th. Hopefully Tom Dundon shows up, and if he doesn't, then I think we'll have more to worry about.
Oh, yeah. Okay, buddy. Hey, have a great night. Keep up the great work. You are a stud. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Talk soon.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that. Don Krolowitz. I got great news. Danny Christerian, fresh out of surgery, donating a kidney to his buddy Johnny. I did not expect a phone call, but he called, and we're going to get an update from him live from Phoenix coming up next. We'll see how the procedure went, how he's feeling. This is pretty awesome. You got the Rip City Drive. I appreciate your time. Hope you're enjoying your Wednesday here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, Rip City Drive. Hope you're enjoying your Wednesday afternoon. Right now, I double-checked it. Portland has the worst air quality in the entire world right now, which is pretty amazing. Let's see here, 503-248-0620. Waiting on a phone call from the one and the only Daniel Christerian, who just came out of surgery, donating a kidney to his best friend, Johnny. So hoping to hear from him. I was talking to him, and his phone, the phone connection just died, but then Shacker was talking to him, so hopefully we'll be able to connect. I just want an update. That's all. Let's see here. Let me consort.
And he's still in a hospital bed right now?
He is.
Yeah, cell receptions can be bad at hospitals.
Why is that? Do we know why that is?
Depended on the building, getting cell reception in a hospital. I know there is 0 cell reception at the VA hospital around here, so that's one example. And I've been in other hospitals where I've had trouble getting calls, so you have to go outside of the building. But if you're a patient, you don't have that option.
I'm just hoping that, someday, maybe, they might have a cell phone that can, be able to receive and take calls from anywhere with no issues. But that seems to be a problem.
I wonder if there's a landline to his room. I can call reception, try to get through that way.
Let's see here. Let's go to the platform. Okay, yeah, Portland. Live most polluted global major city rankings right now. Congo is high up on the list, as is Uganda, and then Portland right up there near the top. So the Democratic Republic of Congo is 187. Uganda is 172, and Portland right now 163. And then the usual suspects. Jakarta, Indonesia, Pakistan, India, Qatar, Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia. Tel Aviv's high up there as well.
I love being in gridlock traffic on the freeway, and the digital sign says, spare the air, limit driving. When my car's going below 5 miles per hour due to gridlock traffic.
Yeah, the traffic lately has been brutal. It's just driving me insane.
Yeah, no one's sparing the air. Everyone's still driving, doing their things.
I mean, you have become a master of being able to work from many different locations, but do you prefer to be in the office or do you prefer to be at home? Do you have a preference?
I prefer not commuting. I feel like I could be more productive if I work from home. But with this type of equipment, it is better to be in the office, to be on top of the computers instead of connected to a laptop that's connected to the computers.
So on a day like today where we had significant technical difficulties, had you been remote, we would have been screwed.
Yeah, I would have been very uncomfortable and it would have been very interesting.
And then I would have been yelling at somebody. It would have been bad. But we got through it. Props to Wright, because I thought, well, if the phones are down, why don't we just connect via Teams? And then when he came on, it sounds better than the actual phone itself. It worked out perfectly.
Yeah, we should get all your RipCityDrive guests hooked up with Microsoft Teams.
I'm just thinking back, my boss, Don Koss, when I was doing high school sports for him in the early 2000s, he had that device, the portable device called the Cellcast. Have you ever seen one of those?
No, but I've used different portable devices without.
I mean, the Cellcast was great because I could be out in the middle of nowhere, like like Sisters, Oregon, for example, and it had a sweet little antenna that plugged right into the box, and you just dialed in to the station, and then boom, you had your box, headphones plugged into it, and you could go from there. You could also, if you had a hard line, you could connect the Cellcast that way as well. But that was actually a pretty good, device. But now, heck, you could do a game. You could connect via the internet. If you just had a, power and internet plug in, you could connect via Teams or whatever and call the game that way. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you don't even need an Ethernet cord because there's devices that use cell phone technology. So you could set up anywhere.
Well, and we have that too with that portable tie line that we use for some of our remotes where we don't like it, but you can connect it. I mean, it can be connected via a like one of those portable hotspots.
Yeah, you did that last year. You did the RipCityDrive from a park in Gresham. And that was all on a device using cell phone technology.
For all the time I spend, banging on Gresham, that was a nice park.
Yeah.
Didn't you like that?
Yeah. And the broadcast was flawless, all using a portable device.
That's amazing to me because, dude, you remember this, like in the old school radio days. Like I remember going on, remotes when I was working over at K-Van with the crew there. We'd show up at one of those places in Vancouver to do like a live remote. It required like multiple bodies and big old equipment. It was very, very much a hassle to put on a show like that.
Yeah, I've been at this long enough where we use devices with telephone lines. And sometimes to get a telephone line, you'd have to get it from like an ATM at a business because those were running off phone lines.
Dude, I'll never forget. I was so happy. So my best friend Steve, who has called some games with me in the past, I think this is when I was working over at the game. We had a high school game up in Camas with the paper makers at the, I think it's Doc. Is it Doc? That's not Doc Martin. Their football stadium up there, which is really nice. Doc something. Anyways, we got up there, and of course, the phone line was turned off, right? Well, his background with the Via Communications was, like phone technology communications. So he had his kit with him. So he goes, hold on, I think I got this. And so like he went behind the scenes at the stadium and was able to turn on a phone line. We plugged in and was able to do the broadcast with no problems.
So who gets the phone bill when you do that?
Not us. But we're there providing a service. What was it? What happened? Yeah, so he and I were also doing a game. He would get real nervous because he was not a radio guy. But I just enjoyed hanging out with him and doing games with him. So we're doing a game out there at Hillsborough. This is when Colt Laierla was playing for Hillsborough. We're out there at Hillsborough Stadium, and he had brought 2 little miniature bottles of a Captain...
the Morgan?
Yeah, Captain Morgan. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, this helps relax the nerves for me. I was like, oh, really? He goes, you want some? I said, why not? So I hit a couple of miniature airline bottles of Captain... what is it again?
Captain Morgan.
Yeah, Captain Morgan. And it was like a lime flavor. It was pretty good. Anyways, I don't drink. And so that had a, shall we say, a profound impact on my speech. So I remember at halftime, I think it was John Strong, who's now the voice of like soccer. He was talking to me down the line. He's like, hey, Chad, are you okay? I'm like, I feel great. Why? What's going on? He goes, you're slurring some of your words. And I looked at Steve, and he looked at me, and we just smiled like, oops. Thanks, Captain. Really appreciate that. That's how that went down, Shacker. And then that one time where I got lost in Hollywood on New Year's Eve with the What's Up With You Girl? They did the Ducks song right before the Ohio State Ducks Rose Bowl. It's the last time I ever went out with Gavin. I almost died. I don't know how I made it back to the hotel. And I just remember being at a Popeyes with some homeless guy. Somehow I made it back to the hotel, and the next morning, like, he and I were on air doing the pregame.
You and the homeless guy?
No. Me and Gav. And I think Godfather was there, too. I was still partially drunk. And it was one of the best shows we ever did together. Crazy. And then, but I suffered because I didn't get much sleep. And then by the time I got to the stadium, I had a raging headache. Brutal. That's all I've got to say about that.
Sounds like that's how you and Travis should call a Blazer game.
That would be fun. It'd be very interesting. All right, big thanks to all of our guests, to Don Krolowitz, Jim Etzel. Also, props to Wright Gazaway for making time. I appreciate you guys listening to the show. Have a great night, and I'll be back tomorrow with the Rip City Drive at 3 here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620.